Hi there, it's Jen from modernmedicinelady.com and the Empathic Woman System, and the word of the day is obvious. So when I was a kid, I was one of those really high-strung, extremely dramatic, overly emotional children. And I was one of those high-strung, really dramatic, one might even say drama queen kinds of teenagers. And then even as a young adult, I was still a total drama queen. I was kind of a hot mess. And the thing is that when I felt my feelings, they were so intense, they were so overwhelming that it kind of felt like, oh my God, I'm having a feeling, stop the world, I need to get off. I can't, what do you mean I need to go to school? What do you mean I need to do this work? What do you mean I need to do the dishes? I'm having an emotion. I can't do anything right now. I am debilitated by all the feels. And the thing is that they were very overwhelming for me because I didn't really have a lot of coping skills. I didn't really have a lot of tools for knowing how to manage my feelings. I came from some fairly high-strung people, and one of the things that I learned was that particularly anxiousness was something that got a lot of attention and got a lot of credibility. So if I was feeling a lot of concern or worry or fear, where some anxiousness was coming up for me, a lot of times it was kind of like I went into freeze mode. And if you think about the idea of the way our brain works when it comes to fear, there's basically three responses. There's fight, there's flight, and there's freeze. And when I was having intense emotions, most of the time, the way that I was taught to cope with it and the way that I was wired to cope with it was to freeze. And that meant that I would just be like losing days, feeling intense feelings, and just sort of wandering through life, worrying that my feelings were obvious to other people. And thinking, because they were so intense for me, then it must be clear that I'm having these feelings. It must be obvious to anybody who's seeing me that I am just a complete and utter train wreck. And, as a highly sensitive empathic person, other people's emotions are often obvious to us. Other people's energy, other people's feelings, we can sense them. And so I often was afraid that not only would it be obvious that I was feeling what I was feeling, but also that other people might be picking up on it or feeling it themselves. So I was often concerned about being kind of out in the world when I was having these intense emotions, which was kind of happening all the time, because I was afraid that it would affect other people too, in the same way that being sensitive and picking up on other people's emotions affected me. So it's kind of, well, of course, that's understandable. Now, the thing is, over the years, I've learned so much about how to sit with feelings, and I've learned so much about the fact that basically emotions are not facts, they're just feelings, and they're only part of what makes me. They're not everything. And I've also learned something really valuable, which is that even if I may be having a deep emotion, it's not necessarily obvious to absolutely everybody else. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're feeling what I'm feeling. It doesn't necessarily mean that just because I'm having a hard day, I'm going to infect everybody else with my difficult day just by showing up in the grocery store in the same place they are. And I've also learned that while those of us who are highly sensitive and empathic often can see other people's feelings or feel other people's feelings, they can be pretty obvious to us. The truth is that there are a lot of people on this planet for whom this stuff is not as obvious. And in a lot of ways, that's an incredible relief, I think, because there's a certain amount of privacy that we actually have that maybe we don't realize we have. And what I realized was that as a younger person, I just kind of imagined that my emotions and what I was going through was so obvious that somebody was just going to notice my distress and come along and basically volunteer to help me or say, hey, Jen, are you okay? It looks like you're having a hard time. Can I help you? And the thing is that while there certainly were people who were good at reading cues and people who were like good at sort of watching me on the fainting couch with my hand stapled to my forehead, there were a lot of times where there were people who just basically were going about the rest of their life and minding their own business and didn't necessarily know that I needed help because it wasn't as obvious as I thought it was. And when I learned that it's more effective for me to ask for support than it is for me to be throwing shade and throwing all kinds of subtle cues out there all the time, I actually started getting my needs met in a way that is way more effective than when I was basically waiting for people to notice what I thought was so obvious. And also to give people a choice about whether or not they were able to help me. So I found over the years that it's much better if I notice that I'm having a feeling to check in and say, hey, I'm having a really hard time. Could you listen to me? Hey, I'm having a really hard time. Could you give me a hug? Hey, I'm having a really hard time. Can we schedule to do some tapping together? But just to really be aware of the fact that I can ask for support. People can choose to give it to me or not, depending on how much bandwidth and emotional energy they've got. But that I have the ability to go and get support. And if one person can't give it to me, then I can continue to move forward until I find somebody who can. So my question to you right now is, do you imagine your emotions are obvious? Do you find yourself sending out cues and hoping people are going to recognize them and waiting for people to support you and help you? Or do you ask for help? Do you reach out and say, hey there, I could use a little bit of support right now? And who are your go-to people? Who are the ones that have got your back and that you can reach out to for support when you really need it? So I'd love to hear what you have to say about all of this. Please leave a comment below. And until next word of the day, I'm wishing you peace, I'm wishing you ease, and I'm wishing you both the ability to ask for help and also just an awareness of the freedom that comes from the fact that you do have some privacy with your emotions in the same way that I have some privacy with my emotions, and that not everything is as obvious as we think as empaths. So in the meantime, if you're interested in learning even more about where you fall on the highly sensitive and empathic spectrum, then please go to empathicwoman.com and go take my What's Your Empathic Type quiz. And then it's going to give you an opportunity to sign up for my newsletter so that you can stay up to date with all kinds of cool stuff, talking about this stuff and all kinds of other stuff too. So until tomorrow, peace. And empathicwoman.com. Go there now. Take the quiz. Peace.